Call is now being recorded.
Hello?
Hi. Hi. Jess?
Hello?
Jess,
Yes.
do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you state your name and that you consent to being recorded?
Jessica Menser, and yes, I consent to being recorded.
Okay. Jessica, tell us where you're from.
I'm from Folsom, California, a small suburban neighborhood right outside of Sacramento, California.
And what was it like growing up in Folsom as a kid? So can you speak about the kind of activities you did and such?
Yeah, so growing up as a kid, we did a lot of both indoor and outdoor activities. But as far as outdoor activities, Sacramento area is very hot during the summer. It reaches over 100 degrees. So most of the activities we were doing involved water so that we could cool down. Our family had a boat and there was a lake there. So a lot of our activities involved going boating, tubing. If we were at home, we had a pool. We would do water balloon fights. We'd even just spray each other with the hose if we were on the trampoline and having fun. So most of those activities just revolved around water because it was so hot. So if you were outside, it was pretty much the only way you could bear being outside.
Okay. And how long was your boating season at the time?
At the time, our boating season was roughly around April to August. So it was really long.
Wow. Okay. And did you ever think about water conservation as a kid?
Not as a kid. There wasn't really a reason to think about it. First of all, one, I was young, and then also there wasn't a problem with not having enough water. So there was never a time my dad would be like, oh no, we can't do water balloon fights today, or we can't do this. So there wasn't really a worry at all.
Mm-hmm. There just wasn't a conversation at the time about it.
Correct. Yes, there was no
Mm-hmm.
conversation, so it wasn't something that I was worried about.
And then when and how did you start noticing climate change in your town?
In my town, I started noticing climate change about, let's see here. So it was my junior year of high school, and this was approximately around 2011, around that time. That's kind of when it started going downhill. So up until that point, great boating seasons, using water all the time, but then it started to decline. So the first thing I personally noticed was going boating. In order to get to our boat, we have to walk downstairs, and that's where the boat is. But during a good boating season, it's probably only at the max 5 steps. It takes about 2 seconds to get from the parking lot to where your boat is. But next
and then
thing
the rest of the stairs are underwater?
Correct, yeah. So the rest of the stairs are underwater. So then if we are getting less rain and there is climate problems, then there are those stairs to be used. So that's what started to happen. So then it started to become 20 stairs, 40 stairs. So we were walking down about 20 minutes to get to the boat. And when you're going boating, you're having all your coolers. So it was noticeable for me because you're carrying all this heavy stuff for 20 minutes to get down to the boat. So that's the first time in high school when I was like, okay, there's something going on here. There's a problem. And then also the boating seasons went from many months to maybe 2 months if we were lucky.
And that's just because the water was so low?
Correct. So that you weren't allowed to put your boat in until the water level reached a certain capacity. And it took longer to reach that, and then it went away a lot faster. So that's why it was shorter.
And then so once that became the situation, how did that affect the kinds of activities you did and your overall experience at home?
So affect activities, we started doing more things that were inside because there became more of a worry for water. So we couldn't be outside spraying the hose at each other and having fun because that was seen as, you know, not caring for the environment or wasting water. We were kind of at a state where there were a lot of restrictions on us. So even if we wanted to do that, we couldn't. We couldn't use the water as much as we wanted to. So we started doing things inside more, or just being outside and not using as much water, doing things like playing sports and stuff like that. And then do you want me to speak about kind of how it changed in the town as well?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, so then it started, so before you could wash your cars all the time. We kind of saw that as a fun activity because you could spray each other and it was fun. But then we started to have to do car washes and less because you weren't allowed to wash your car in your driveway anymore because you used a lot more water than you would if you went to a standard car wash. So we weren't allowed to do that anymore. Signs started to go up at restaurants where they were only serving water to you upon request, whereas before you would have your water given to you right away. And anytime your water was, even if it was halfway full, they started tipping it off. So you started to have to kind of weigh down the waiter if you wanted more water as well.
Wow.
And then also another one was you had scheduled days where you were allowed to water your lawn. And because before people were watering their lawns probably every day, but then you were only allowed to do either the odd days of the week or versus the even days. So lawns kind of started to turn more brown. And because of this, people, this was a little bit later on when it was worse, but people started to change into their lawns into either just being bark or they would buy the turf so that they weren't having to water their lawns and then also have brown lawns even with watering them.
Wow. So everybody kind of just made this effort to use a bunch less water.
Yes. Yeah. So it was citywide, and a lot of that was because of regulations that were placed on the city with how much water you were allowed to use. But it also was, you know, you could see people's personal efforts of trying to make a change with that as well.
Mhm. And so has this led you to interact with your hometown and other places around the world any differently?
Yeah, I think being able to see the change of how big of a difference it was from going, I don't know, the lake change was, like, I can't even begin to describe how astonishing it was of how much of a difference was. Because a lot of people, you know, you hear this term of climate change and, you know, they haven't really seen it. They don't know what that means, what it looks like in their life because they haven't seen that drastic change of water level. So I was able to see that personally. So now, just with simple stuff, you know, being aware of how much water I'm using. So whether that's putting in more laundry in within one load so you don't have to split it up, or making sure that your dishwasher is actually full when you run it, decreasing the time you shower. So just being more aware of how much water you're using on a daily basis, and every time you can, I just try to take a chance to reduce the amount of water I'm using.
Wow, that's great. Well, thank you for answering all these questions. I think I have enough to do my assignment.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad I could help.
Okay, thanks, Jess.
Okay, bye.